morning, everyone. Bereshus, the Chashva Rosh HaKollel, Rabbi Torchiner. I particularly am honored to be speaking in a program that Rabbi Torchiner has arranged. It gives me great kavod to address you, especially in the mitzvah of Shemitah, which is very, very dear to me and very close to my heart. I spent a lot of time learning and preparing for the Shemitah year, and it's a tremendous Kiddush Hashem to be able to share my perspective, some of my thoughts, some halachos with this community. And I always enjoy the time that I spend together with the Avreichim of the Kollel. As Rabbi Torchiner mentioned, we go on field trips. He didn't mention that we also have a good time in some of the local restaurants. We enjoy ourselves too. And every opportunity that I've had to spend here in the Kollel and as well as on the road and sharing some of the experiences and knowledge that I have has been tremendously enjoyable for me, and for that I thank you very much. In the introduction to the Sefer called Mishmeres HaShvius, which was written by a contemporary Rav Karp from Kiryat Sefer, he shares a tremendous insight into the pasuk, Ki savohu el haaretz, when you come into the land, asher ani nosein lachem, v'shavsa haaretz Shabbos laHashem, and the land will rest Shabbos to Hashem. Sheish shanim tizras adecha, for 6 years you will plant, you will work the fields, you will shear the vineyards, v'asaftas t'vuasa, and you will gather all of the produce. Uvashana hashvius Shabbos Shabboson, and in the 7th year it is the Shabbos of all Shabbos. The question is, the first pasuk seemingly has superfluous words. Ki savohu el haaretz, when you come into the land, v'shavsa haaretz Shabbos l'Hashem. The Torah is telling you about the mitzvah of Shemitah. And then it goes back and tells you how the Shemitah cycle works. Sheish shanim, for 6 years you work the field, you gather the produce. Uvashana hashvius, and on the 7th year, Shabbos Shabboson. It's the Shemitah year, which is called the Shabbos of all Shabboses. Why then does the Torah introduce the issue, the idea of Shemitah, by just going directly into V'haisaretz Shabbos LaHashem? And Rav Karp explains that Ki savohu el haaretz, when you come to the land, asher ani nosein lachem, when we, as the Bnei Yisrael, are given an opportunity to come to the land, to go back to Eretz Yisrael, to experience Yishuv Haaretz, and to settle the land, and to fulfill the mitzvah, V'haisa Haaretz Shabbos LaHashem, that opportunity that we have for Shemitah to have Yishuv Haaretz is only on condition that V'haisa Haaretz Shabbos LaHashem, that we will keep Shemitah properly. What is Shemitah? Sheishanim tizras adecha v'shana shavius Shabbos Shabboson. The opportunity that we have, the reward called Yishuv Haaretz, going back to Eretz Yisrael, is only on condition V'haisa Haaretz Shabbos LaHashem, is if we will acknowledge and keep and maintain the standards of Shemitah properly. The Ramban further explains that Shemitah is the yesod of Emunah. Just like Shabbos is the yesod of Emunah, similarly Shvius is the yesod of Emunah. And we know in the Klolos, it's mentioned in the Torah, Az tirtze ha'aretz es shabsoseh, that because of the sin of not keeping Shemitah properly, we as Klal Yisrael went into Golus. The 70 years of Golus Bavel were keneged the 70 years that we didn't keep Shemitah properly in the days of the Bayis Rishon. And similarly today, if we can extract the lesson, the zchus, the merit that we have to experience Yishuv Haaretz is only because of keeping Shemitah properly. We as Bnei Chutz La'aretz, as Jews living outside of Eretz Yisrael, have to consider this point very seriously. It's bad enough that we don't have the opportunity to live in Eretz Yisrael for various reasons. Each person has their own reason. It's bad enough that we don't have that opportunity. But how do we tap into the mitzvah of Shvius? How do we experience the mitzvah of Shemitah? How can we share in what they're doing every single day in Eretz Yisrael? I was just speaking to Rabbi Stern, who was a Rav in Toronto, was in Shari Tefillah, so his Rebbitzin was telling me that it's an unbelievable experience for her personally that she has now living in Ramat Beit Shemesh and keeping Shemitah every single day. You have to be conscious of all the halachos in your own kitchen. Every single move that you make, when you cut a vegetable, when you eat produce, you have to have Shemitah in mind. And it's a tremendous challenge and a tremendous opportunity. But we who live in Chutz La'aretz, how do we share that mitzvah? How do we share that opportunity? So I believe that there's two ways that we can partake. The first way that we can partake in the mitzvah of Shemitah is by doing what we're doing here today, this morning, is by learning the halachos of Shemitah. Whether we learn all of the halachos and we have a Seder Kavua, or we only come out once in a while for a shir, whatever it is, whatever we can do as individuals, by learning about the mitzvah of Shemitah, we are partaking in that mitzvah. The mitzvah of Shemitah, that bischus, in the merit of it, we are zocha to Yishuv Haaretz. That's our contribution. That's one way that we can contribute. A second way that we can contribute is by being mahader in the mitzvah of Shemitah, is by being careful in the mitzvah of Shemitah. In any mitzvah, take lulav and esrog. You can be yotzei the mitzvah, and you can be mahader in the mitzvah. You can buy a beautiful esrog, or you can buy an esrog that's kosher. There's always going to be several levels, several ways to be mekayim to fulfill a mitzvah. You can do it, be yotzei it, or you can be mahader. You can beautify, literally beautify the mitzvah of Shemitah. And I believe that we, as Bnei Chutz La'aretz, have an opportunity to be mahader in the mitzvah of Shemitah. Firstly, you may or you may not know that there is an abundance of produce that comes to Toronto, specifically from Eretz Yisrael, and specifically in the Shemitah year. Specifically in the Shemitah year. Why is that? Because the way the economy works in Eretz Yisrael is there's a lot of farmers and a lot of produce that's coming out. And they've been, each year, since the last Shemitah is when I first started following this, each year more and more produce is being exported. And one of the reasons that there's so much export during the Shemitah year is because the consumption, the demand for produce in Eretz Yisrael itself shrinks during the Shemitah year. And the reason is because a large community in Eretz Yisrael, the Shomrei Torah u'mitzvos, will not eat Perus and Yerakos of Shvius that are farmed in a forbidden way by farmers that are not Shomrei Shvius. And therefore the demand, the reality is that the demand in Eretz Yisrael shrinks. So how do the suppliers meet how can they sell the produce that they have? By exporting. And it happens to be, and I spoke similarly in New York as well, and people didn't relate to what I was saying. But I can tell you that in Toronto it happens to be that we receive an abundance of produce through the food terminal downtown. All of the imports that come into Toronto come through a food terminal. And in the fruit terminal, it's examined and it's made sure that the fruits and the vegetables are up to standards and are checked for diseases and that they're healthy. And through that food terminal comes an abundance of peiros and yerakos from Eretz Yisrael. So first of all, there's a lot of import that's coming. So we will have the opportunity to adhere to the halachos of Shemitah in Toronto. It's a fact. A lot of the fruits you can identify by the sticker that's on the fruit. It says produce of Israel. A lot of the vegetables in the supermarkets, you see signs up there. The women will know that in the signs in the back of the fruit in behind the fruits where they're located in the supermarket, it says produce of the specific country that it's coming from. So we'll be able to identify fruits and vegetables as fruits and vegetables that come from Eretz Yisrael, and therefore, if we know a little bit about the halachos, then we'll be able to adhere to the mitzvahs of Shemitah properly. Secondly, and I see this that from my own personal desk at the COR, there are many people that are calling me about what do we do when we go to Israel and we want to eat out in restaurants, in hotels, in catering facilities. Where can we eat? Where can we not eat? And there's a lot of people that are going to Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem. A lot of people. They're not discouraged by any terror attacks. People are going, and they're going in greater numbers than they've ever been going. And they want to know, where can we eat and where can we not eat? And we have to know, if we're planning trips to Eretz Yisrael, which many of us are, then we have to know, what are the halachos of Shemitah? Where can we eat and where can we not eat? And therefore, there is an opportunity for us as Jews living outside of Eretz Yisrael to adhere to the halachos of Shemitah and to be mahader, to beautify the mitzvah of Shemitah. I heard a story from the Belzer Dayan in New York, Rav Asher Eckstein. He told me as follows. The Shloah HaKadosh, at the end of his life, moved to Eretz Yisrael. And on his way to Eretz Yisrael, it is said that he had a dream. And in his dream, he saw the words of the pasuk, Al tetame es artzi. Al tetame es artzi. Do not impurify my land. Don't make my land tameh. The Shloah HaKadosh took that message, and he was known that he had certain leniencies when it came to the halachos of Shemitah. And he was on his route to become the Rav in Eretz Yisrael. Al tetame es artzi. When a person lives in Eretz Yisrael, he can follow one set of halachos. But when a person is coming from Chutz La'aretz into Eretz Yisrael, we have to be even more careful. We have to be very careful. We have to be mahader. There is a tshuva in the Igros Moshe. They asked Rav Moshe Feinstein the following question. One of the primary questions that you have on a practical level in Shemitah is called Yivul Nachri. If land is owned by a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael proper, so in Yehuda and Shomron, if land is owned by Arabs, by non-Jews, and they don't have mitzvah Shemitah, so they grow fruits and vegetables, does that produce have Kedusha Shvius, or does it not have Kedusha Shvius? And that's a big machlokas. It's a tremendous controversy in many poskim. There's the Shitas Beis Yosef who allows it. There's the Shitas Ma'abit and the Chazon Ish after him who don't allow it. It's been a machlokas for many generations. So they asked Rav Moshe, it was a new question, because Jews were able to go from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, and they wanted to know. It was well known that the minhag in Yerushalayim was to be lenient like the Beis Yosef in this question. And the minhag, in general, outside of the old Yeshuvim, outside of Yerushalayim, was to be machmir. So they wanted to know, how should B'nai Chutz La'aretz be noheg? What should we do? Should we be machmir and avul nachri, or should we be mekel and eat at the local restaurants in Yerushalayim? And Rav Moshe said like this. It's a tremendous insight into Rav Moshe's personality and the humble way that he approached Psak Halacha. V'hine, lahalacha l'maisa, tzarech leda, lahalacha l'maisa, you have to know, migedole Yisrael shebe'eret Yisrael eich linog bechol davar be'inyanei Shemitah. Don't ask me this question. I'm a posek here in Chutz La'aretz. If you want to understand a halacha that's relevant to Shemitah and Eretz Yisrael, go ask the poskim in Eretz Yisrael. Don't ask me the question. Vilasos kimo shenagu gedolei Yisrael shahaisam dirasam kavua be'Eretz Yisrael, and do like the gedolim did in Eretz Yisrael, who live in Eretz Yisrael. And then he says as follows: V'gam hagriz mi brisk. And also the Briskerov, v'achazan ish, hayusham. They lived in Eretz Yisrael. V'yadu avadai lebneim v'talmideim eich shenagu. And certainly, the Brisker Talmidim and the Talmidim of the Chazan Ish and Bnei Brak know exactly what their Rebbeim and their Gedolim were doing. So go and ask them. Now it's well known that the Brisker Rav and the Chazan Ish were the Machmirim, were the stringent Poiskim, Gedolim in this question, and there were other big Gedolim who were Mekel. Rav Moshe said two things. He said, first of all, when it comes to a question about Eretz Yisrael, go ask Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael. But if you want to know my opinion about which Gedolim you should ask, he says, go ask the Talmidim of the Chazan Ish and the Brisker Rav, and they'll tell you that as B'nai Chutz La'aretz, and you're coming into Eretz Yisrael, you have to be careful. Al tatameis arti. We have to be mahat. We have an extra achrayis, an extra responsibility to treat Eretz Yisrael in its fullest kedusha, in the kedusha in its fullest sense, and we have to be more careful than the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. And this perspective that I have goes even further. I'm not going to get into the machlokes, the heilige machlokes, on whether heter mechira is allowed or it's not allowed. It's not my place to get into it. I don't stick my head in between mountains. Gedolim on one side, Gedolim on the other side. But one thing I will say is that the leniency which Rav Kook said was a chova to be noheg in Eretz Yisrael was specifically written for the economy in Eretz Yisrael. It was written so that the economy in Eretz Yisrael would not be ruined, would not be killed. Should all of the farmers stop working the land, I don't know the details, but it would have been tremendously harmful for the economy. But Rav Kook himself said that as soon as, and I have the Lashon in front of me, I'm not going to read it, but he says so in Meshavas Haaretz, he says, as soon as God has mercy on us, v'yeshvu yomim hatovim, and the good days will come back for Eretz Yisrael and for the economy, and there will be a possibility from an economical perspective to be shomer kedusha shvius kedina, to keep the holiness of shvius according to its din, b'milu'ah, in its original essence, in its below shum hafka, without any type of way around it, then that should be done. And we're not going to say whether or not today we could do it. It's certainly not my position to say things have changed or things haven't changed. That's not what I'm here to say. My perspective is a perspective of a ben chutz la'aretz. And certainly a ben chutz la'aretz, whether we're partaking in the mitzvahs shvius, which the Megillas Esther, who was a commentary on the Ramban, says that the shita of the Ramban is that if you eat peros and yerakos of shvius in its kedusha, according to the halachos, you are yotzei a mitzvah seidoraisa. Many Rishonim disagree with that position, but Megillas Esther understands that the Ramban held that eating Shvius properly, treating it with kedusha and respect, not throwing it out, being makpid in its kedusha, is a mitzvah aseh d'oraisa. And even if it's not a mitzvah aseh d'oraisa, it's certainly a great inyan to partake in this mitzvah, as we've said. So it behooves us, as b'nei chutz la'aretz, to be mahader in the mitzvah, to be careful about Peirus and Yerakos Shvius that come to Chutz La'aretz, to treat it with dignity, to treat it with respect, to not eat it when we're not supposed to eat it, to eat it when we can eat it, and to do it properly, to learn the halachos. And when we go to Eretz Yisrael, we must understand each and every place that we eat. How are they keeping Shemitah in that place? It might be that they're lenient with certain kulos, with certain leniences, but does that mean that we who come from Chutz La'aretz have to share those leniencies? It doesn't necessarily mean so. We have to learn the halachos, we have to consult with our Rabbanim, and we have to be very, very careful to be mahader in this beautiful mitzvah called Shemitah. And if we are careful, and if we are mahader, and if we show the Rabbeinu Shalom that we want to partake in all of the mitzvahs of your holy land, then the Rabbeinu Shalom will look down on us and will say, it's time now for you to come back. Ki savohu el haaretz asher ani nosein lechem, v'shavsa haaretz Shabbos l'Hashem, with the bias goal tzedek b'mheira v'yameinu.